Hello and welcome to the all new Racerkarts rifles. This is Tom. He's worked with me on just about every project I've done in the last few years. Now he's getting involved with this. Tom, what are we doing in this episode, mate?
This episode we'll be looking at my Webley Raider .22. It's a rifle that I bought second hand and I've been having some real issues with the gun. So we're going to reverse engineer the gun and try and find some solutions to these issues.
Excellent. Let's get cracking.
You love Webleys, don't you, mate?
This is the two-shot version of Webley's Raider in .22, released to the general public back in the last century as an entry-level PCP. Its mark on the airgun world is mixed, with some loving it as a serious pest control rifle and others degrading it to no better than a kid's backyard plinker. Safety comes from not pulling the trigger, and the two-shot loading mechanism is about as useful as a single-shot version, or a non-existent pressure gauge, which is also fitted as standard on this model. It does have one major ace up its sleeve though, a choked barrel, and what's more, it's incredibly easy to strip on the bench and simple in design. This Raider is my Raider. It was sold to me by a farmer as a pest control job lot, with a stack of accessories that included a G10 air pistol, 2 moderators, a pump, rangefinder, a stack of camo, a well-padded bag and a Tasco duplex scope. It seemed like a bargain, but after a few weeks the shine for this rifle was as worn as the varnish on the forestock. It chipped O-rings on nearly every fill, it wouldn't zero and gave groups only a shotgun would be proud of. As for mapping, it wasn't consistent enough to get any real data. It was clear this was never going to be accurate enough in its current guise to drop targets, preferring to worry them instead. Initially we did the basics. We cleaned the barrel, removing years of lead and surprisingly what appeared to be cotton fibres. The moderators were stripped and rogue pellets removed, but a zero and tight group still eluded me. I put it into On Target in 2015 to get a Corona report where it was found to be at 13.5 foot-pounds, apparently due to some stupidly placed washers compressing the hammer spring. Once removed, the groups tightened, and for brief periods the rifle would hold a zero, but within 10 shots we'd be back to square one. I was told the tired Tasco scope was most likely the cause of the poor accuracy, and bought a 6-24 mil-dot scope with an adjustable objective collar that began at 25 yards with the next increment of 50 yards. The Richter optic scope is perfect for 2.2 long rifles, as most air rifle shots, especially 2.2, are between 10 and 40 yards. As this scope won't go down to 10 yards, it's a case of aim at the blur and hope for the best under 20 yards. You can't even use it as a poor man's rangefinder, as the markings are too far apart, even for a 177.
I noted on hunts that the rifle chewed up the top O-ring on the filling adapt to nearly every fill, hinting that the inlet port may have a burr on it kindly left by Webley. On inspection no burr was found, but there was no chamfer either. This means the inlet bore acts as a guillotine sliced off a piece of O-ring pretty much every fill. Also, most of those slices were never retrieved, so we'll need to add a chamfer and clean the valve assembly. The second thing I noticed was it can group, but just when you crack it, it drops off or loses its consistency. More worryingly, this is very intermittent, reducing confidence in the overall setup. The third thing we know is that there's no indication of where you are in a charge, as Webley didn't fit a pressure gauge. After some internet searches and course-selected TW chambers, we decided that retrofitting one is not cost effective. We also download a full rifle schematic from the TW Chambers website, in case we need to strip down the rifle to check everything is there. Now we need to gather some data to establish some trends, so I'm sending Tom to the indoor range to shoot a target at 25 yards over a 200 bar charge in 10 shot groups until the drop off is clear. And I'm going to do a chronograph map from 200 bar to the point where the rifle drops off.
Shooting this target set using my preferred pellet, the 2.2 Falcon Accuracy Plus, may look like a waste of time and pellets, but with many of the variables standardised, such as wind, elevation and rounds per minute, it's a good trend indicator of what the rifle can do in near perfect and consistent conditions, so anything less than a perfect and consistent output would be a cause for concern. Results show that the rifle should shoot 80 shots before needing recharging. It also shows that the pellet is a good match for the barrel, as there's little windage deviation shot to shot. The major worry I see is that the shot to shot elevation is overall poor. This says that either the pellet's weight is varying vastly or there's a problem with the power delivery in the rifle. 2.2 Falcon Accuracy Plus have been reviewed by Racerkarts rifles, so I can check the weight variation I'd expect to see from the 32-piece sample Glen studied. The review shows that the weight variation is wider than expected when compared to RWS Superfield and H&N FTT. With this in mind, we need to see the chronograph map to see if the FPS spread is varying. From there we decide if it's the air rifle or the pellet that is most likely the cause of the vertical spread shot to shot.
For Tom's targets, I'm using RWS Superfields that from our 2.2 pellet review are known to be very good on weight variation. The chronograph map in standard form shows that this rifle can vary shot speed anywhere from 1 foot per second to 78 feet per second shot to shot. This erratic variation in pellet speed is the most likely cause of the variation in the vertical string on Tom's targets, so we need to look at controlling this power issue first. Using the schematic we downloaded, we see that the hammer is moved by the hammer spring. As the hammer's velocity is varying, we zero in on the spring, believing it to be flexing and bowing during extension. As there's no spring guide to control it, just the internal wall of the hammer, we need to check the spring for signs of fatigue. The chrono chart also tells us that the drop-off is around shot 45, but it's such a gradual drop-off and hidden in power variation that it may go unnoticed until around shot 55. This is nearly 50% less shots than expected, so why the difference?
Being an engineer, I thought this may be down to gravity increasing the efficiency of the hammer opening the valve for longer. In reality, 2 different charging systems were used to fill the rifle. It all comes back to the radar not having a pressure gauge fitted to reference off. I used the pump from the chrono, while Tom used the 3 diving bottles at the range. Another PCP rifle was charged to 200 bar with the pump. With the rifle's gauge showing 200 bar and the pump showing 250 bar, it was clear the pump was not charging as thought. We marked the gauge on the pump for future reference and decided to keep the future trials the same as the baseline data regarding charging going forward to maintain consistency. This is not a problem as we're halfway into the rifle's sweet spot and we have the before and after targets to work to.
Also, when charging the rifle, I came across a leak from the filling port. This is something internal, and my best guess is the O-ring pieces are in the valve assembly preventing it from closing properly. This is a random occurrence, and a few more pumps of air allowed the valve to seal, backing up my guess of debris in the valve. So we definitely need to strip the rifle's action to see what's happening internally. We also need to chamfer the filling inlet port to stop chopping O-rings and clean out the valve. In brief, it's a full strip down and analysis of each component while run. This will also give me a chance to make a design for a DIY pressure gauge. Okay, so we've got some baseline data now. We know roughly the direction I'm going to take the rifle. Tom, next episode?
In the next episode, we're going to tear the rifle down, analyse components, and see if there's anything obvious we can spot that's causing the poor accuracy.
Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and we'll see you next time. Bye! Yeah.
I'm sick of this, I'm
Good.
going home.